I'd like to call on Permanent Secretary Ms. Camille Gerald to give us a word of prayer.
Dear God, we want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to come before your presence this morning as a senior management team. Lord, we know that we are at the start of the hurricane season, and we ask for your divine guidance and your divine staying power to keep these storms away from us. But nonetheless, Lord, we are here at the annual hurricane conference, and we ask for your divine intervention and guidance as we go through with the proceedings of today. And we ask that you allow us, prepare our hearts and minds so that we can be in a state of readiness in the event that something were to happen, so that we can be prepared, so that life can be returned to as normal as possible in the event that something happens. We pray again for your divine guidance and intervention on the proceedings, and bless us all this morning for Christ's sake.
Thank you, Mrs. Gerald, for that prayer. Just a few housekeeping pointers to note. In the event of an emergency, you have two exits, one to the right, one straight ahead. You will proceed to the upstairs parking lot. If you go through the one on the right, you will proceed outwards and go to the warehouse gate, where you will be briefed accordingly. The restrooms are straight through the door on the right, male and female restrooms. His Excellency the Governor, Andrew Pearce, Honorable Deputy Governor, Mrs. Lyndon Simpson, Honorable Acting Premier, Mr. Paul Lewis, Honorable Attorney General, Mrs. Sherry Gemma Rodney, Permanent Secretaries of all various ministries, directors, all other attendees. We at the DMCA extend a warm welcome to all who have taken time from their busy schedules to attend this 2019 Hurricane Conference. We hope that your participation and input will boost our national preparedness for the 2019 hurricane season. Our local theme for this hurricane season is get ready, stay ready, it only takes one. And that's what we'll be pushing in all our ads and all our promos on the radio and various mediums. Without further ado, we'll go straight into the agenda. Without further ado, I'll call on the Director of the DMCA, Major Alvin Ryan, to give his opening remarks. Major Ryan.
Welcome to our annual Hurricane Conference held here at the Disaster Management and Coordination Agency. Hurricane preparedness is everybody's business. It is the responsibility of each and every one of us at the DMCA, the Governor's Office, government ministries and departments, statutory bodies, civic organizations, and all stakeholders on Montserrat to be ready so as to ensure that any impacts from a storm or hurricane on our lives, our properties, or livelihoods are minimized. With this in mind, we in Montserrat, coordinated by the DMCA, practice what we refer to as comprehensive disaster management. We recognize that we cannot do it by ourselves. We need everyone on board to ensure that Montserrat is adequately prepared in the event we should be impacted by a storm or hurricane. Our system ensures that all our stakeholders are represented at the table and are able to participate in decision-making led by His Excellency the Governor, in consultation with the Premier, and directed by yours truly, in order to achieve the desired outcome, which is ultimately making sure that persons are safe and damage is minimized. As my staff can attest, I always call for teamwork. I am heartened by the number of stakeholders present here this morning, and it would seem to me that I have to extend this room. So let us forever continue to work together. The importance of adequate preparations cannot be overemphasized, and each and every one of us in this room must be ready by ensuring that our workplaces, homes are prepared to mitigate against the impacts of any storm or hurricane that may threaten us, and facilitate continuity of operations in the aftermath of a storm or hurricane. Simple measures like having a hurricane preparedness plan and practicing it, fixing leaking windows, roofs and doors, removing overhanging branches, keeping drains on our properties clean, packing emergency preparedness kits, and checking our batteries can ensure that you are prepared for any occurrences. In conclusion, if a storm is threatening, please pay keen attention to all watches and warnings and other official information issued by the DMCA and the government of Montserrat. Let us continue to work together, ever remembering that we are here to help people. So get ready, stay ready, it only takes one. Thank you.
Thank you, Director, for those brief remarks. I'll now call on His Excellency the Governor, Andrew Pearce, for his remarks.
Notebook. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll be really super brief because we want to get on with the real business here. But just a few very brief thoughts. Firstly, a real thank you. Thank you very much, everyone, as Alvin was saying, for turning up this morning. Busy time, and it's a Friday. Thank you very much for doing that and flexibly fitting in with the change of schedule we had this week. It's really appreciated. Thank you, and thank you to the DMCA team. You're always very hospitable here, and it's difficult work you do, rather understated work, but it's really appreciated the way you do it. For various reasons, I suppose it's just chance. If I think back at my a couple of decades or more in public service, I have had both, in a way, the misfortune and the good fortune to be involved in some pretty tricky disasters of one sort or another. And I haven't always, if I'm frank, handled them brilliantly, but in a way that's where they've had the best impact. You learn most, I think, from mistakes. And in addition to having really good plans, in my experience there are a few other things that really count as well. And our plans are jolly good, and thank you very much for working on them, and I know we're here to refine them, and they are key. I'm not to downplay that, but there's a sense of sort of psychological resilience to disasters too, because whenever they strike, even the best plans tend to fall apart a bit. I'm afraid that is just the reality of the human condition. And so I think back to when we had a very bad tsunami in my last one posting in Thailand, and we lost 35,000 people in Thailand, and just under 40 Brits killed and a lot evacuated from our tiny embassy, or not so tiny, but our embassy compound. And it was always going to be a mess. It was always going to be chaotic. Lots of British families upset, couldn't contact their missing folks for many days there. Ditto for the multinational family. And there came into play there, I saw it very clearly with the Thai character, a sort of psychological resilience to working with a degree of confusion. We maybe don't always like that in the Anglo-Saxon British system. We like it all to be ordered, and this point and that point. We turn to our pages of our books. But it is very good to have a psychological ability to flex and not expect everything to be tied down and not get panicky when something doesn't go quite as planned. And I was struck last year that the visiting British Minister of Defence, Mark Lancaster, did comment about the extent to which Montserrat seems to have that psychological depth and resilience, probably because you've been through volcanic eruptions, you've been through Hurricane Hugo, you've been through a very bad flood. I think it was in 85 or 86, before Hugo was a very bad flood. So as a people, you're used to living and working with a degree of uncertainty and I suppose chaos, and I think that's a real strength. So I would also make that point. And also, in perhaps a similar way, not to let the best be the enemy of the good. We, as they say, we can labour over these plans, and I'm a bit of a nerd about plans and phone numbers and is the email up to date and all that. and people get pretty fed up with me, which I quite understand. I get fed up with me too, but not to let the best be the enemy of the good. If this thing is 70-80% there, and we've all got a copy, and we've had a couple of tests of it, that's a pretty good state to be in. So not to be too sort of down on ourselves over the last details. And then the last thought I had is a personal experience from last year. I came back from, I think it was a family break with my wife and her family in Thailand. And we came back here and there was some tropical hurricane thing bearing down on us. Isaac, I think it was, if I remember there. And I was a bit nervous, to be honest, not having been to America. And so, being a Brit, I started getting ready to dig holes and dig trenches and things. And then we had the British Marines, I think it was, came out, a contingent of them. And Alvin and his colleagues are very nice. Montserratians are very nice people. Some folks would have said, oh my goodness, these Brits, and started laughing or something. But there was a sort of slightly wry smile and a readiness to work with us. And I discovered after all that, they came out and everything, that Alvin had been very clear with colleagues that there's no chance of this thing being a hurricane. It was always going to be just at most a tropical storm. And in the event it hit us, and it was not much worse than a rainy British November day, to be frank. So there's a sort of judgment element. You guys, I think, knew in your bones that that wasn't going to be the full Monty, if I can use that phrase, and you aimed off a bit for it. But you were very gracious and hospitable with the British crisis system, which was uneasy. British politicians got burnt, let's tell it as it is, by Irma and Maria, and they made it very clear that not on any of our watches was that to happen again. So they were agitated. That's why we had the Marines come in and the ships and things. And there's still a bit of that mood, and we should keep that in our mind. But it's that sort of sense of quiet judgment that you guys have. You know your storms, you know your area better, in frankness, than any British governor parachuted in here can do. So I really respect that and look to your advice. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, HE, for your remarks. We'll now have the long-awaited predictions by our Education, Information and Outreach Officer, Ms. Shirley-Ann Quealy.
Okay, so today we're going to be looking at NOAA's predictions. That's the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration. And for 2019, they are predicting that we're going to have 9 to 15 named storms, 4 to 8 hurricanes, of which 2 to 4 will be Category 3 or higher. Bearing in mind that an average year has 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 3 Category 3 or higher, 3 in an average year. The probability for this year is 40% near normal. And when we speak about 40% near normal, it has 4 to 5 tropical cyclones. So the outlook reflects competing climate factors. The ongoing El Nino is expected to persist and suppress the intensity of the hurricane season. And you have to remember where hurricanes travel and make landfall. That is what is important. So basically that's the prediction for NOAA. NOAA's Climate Prediction Center is predicting that a near normal Atlantic hurricane season is most likely this year. The outlook forecasts a 40% chance of a near normal season. A near normal season has 4 to 5 tropical cyclones. On this slide, we have a map here, and it's saying much of the Caribbean, which includes Montserrat, may be inactive during the hurricane season right here. And this is due to an above average wind shear, according to experts. These are the areas of concern, but as you can see in the Caribbean, they're basically saying it's not really an area of concern because of the wind shear. What do we mean by wind shear? El Nino occurs when changes in the strength or direction of trade winds cause waters in the central and eastern tropical Pacific Ocean to become warmer than usual. El Nino events affect hurricanes, which are usually suppressed in the Atlantic during El Nino. Warmer water in the Pacific changes the air temperature over the ocean, which skews how winds normally circulate around the planet. One of these effects is increased wind shear, which can tear hurricanes apart or stop them from forming in the first place. Go to the next slide. So if we have an increase in wind shear, it tears a hurricane apart, which is one of the conditions for the formation of strong hurricanes. And what they're saying for this year, we have above average wind shear within the Caribbean region, which is good news, but there are other factors as well. And so basically, I've outlined it here. So for the next slide, we're going to be looking at the forecast for the past 5 years, the past 4 years, 2015, 16, 17, and 18. And in 2015, the forecast was 3 to 6 hurricanes, 2016, 4 to 8 hurricanes, 2017, 5 to 9 hurricanes, and they are predicting now in 2018, 4 to 8 hurricanes. In terms of the forecast for the major hurricanes category 3 or higher, in 2015, they forecast 0 to 2, 2016, 1 to 4, 2017, 2 to 4, and 2018, 1 to 4, and 2019, 2 to 4, category 3 or higher hurricane. So as you can see, in 2015, we actually had 2 major hurricanes, 2016, 4 major hurricanes, and 2017, 6 major hurricanes, which is above average, because normally in an average hurricane season, we normally get 3 major hurricanes. So 2017 was above average. In 2018, we had 2 major hurricanes, well, slightly below average. So to be determined for 2019, we're expecting 4 to 8 hurricanes in 2014 and 2 to 4 major hurricanes in 2019. That's 2019 there. So looking at the figures here, we can see that in 2016, they forecast 4 to 8 hurricanes, and they actually had 7 and 4 major hurricanes. Now in 2019, they are forecasted that we're going to have similar figure, 4 to 8 hurricanes. So what are the conditions in 2016 and 2019? Let's have a look. Okay, so in 2016, they had a weak La Nina out in the Pacific that was lightly connected with reducing wind shear. So we had a reduced wind shear in 2016, and with reduced wind shear, you have strong hurricanes. This year, we have above average wind shear for 2019, which suppresses hurricane formation. Other conditions in 2016, there were above average sea surface temperatures in portions of the subtropical Atlantic and Caribbean that helped power storms. And there were also a bit of dust coming off North Africa in the subtropics. Thus, this atmospheric stabilizing factor was not too prevalent. In 2019, we have warmer than average sea surface temperatures in the tropical Atlantic Ocean and Caribbean Sea, and enhanced West African monsoon, both of which favor increased hurricane activity. And in an El Nino year, there can be active seasons in the Atlantic based on these conditions as well. So even though that we do have El Nino year and the wind shear is above average, we still have other factors that can contribute to the formations of hurricanes. But still, looks a bit better this year, I should say. So basically, we are looking out here at the different institutions and their predictions. So basically, they're on par. University of Colorado, CSU, Weather Channel, and NOAA. CSU is predicting 13 named storms, Weather Channel 14, and NOAA 9 to 15. So basically, the average is 12. So it's basically on par. For hurricanes, 5 for CSU, Weather Channel 7, and NOAA 4 to 8. Major hurricanes, CSU 2, Weather Channel 3, and NOAA 2 to 4. Average, 3 hurricanes. And bearing in mind that the average hurricane season year produces 12 named storms, 6 hurricanes, and 3 major hurricanes. So basically, that is why they're calling it a normal average year this year. Okay, these are the 2019 hurricanes. Andrea, which was a subtropical, it formed on May 20th. That dissipated quickly. So the next storm would be a hurricane, Barry. So those are the names. So a tropical storm watch means that tropical storm conditions with sustained winds of 39 miles to 73 miles per hour are possible within the specified coastal and land area within 48 hours. It means that tropical storm conditions with sustained winds of 39 miles to 73 miles per hour are expected within the specified coastal or land area within 36 hours. Hurricane watch, hurricane conditions with sustained winds of 74 miles per hour or higher are possible somewhere within the specified coastal or land area. Because hurricane preparedness activities become difficult once winds reach tropical storm force wind, the hurricane watch is issued 48 hours advance of the anticipated onset of a tropical storm force winds. During a hurricane warning, an announcement is made that hurricane conditions with sustained winds of 74 miles per hour higher are expected somewhere within the specified coastal or land area. Because hurricane preparedness activities become difficult once winds reach tropical storm force, the hurricane warning is issued 36 hours in advance of the anticipated onset of tropical storm force winds. So, hurricane season preparedness tips: determine your risks, develop an evacuation plan, get insurance coverage, assemble disaster supplies as we have here, strengthen your home, identify your trusted sources of information, which of course we are recommending is ZJB, yours truly, and write down your family plan, business preparedness plan, business continuity plan, and share it. Get ready, stay ready, it only takes one.
I'll now call on the Operations and Logistics Officer, Mr. Kelvin White, to give you the DMCA's preparedness for the 2019 hurricane season. Mr. White.
Good morning, one and all. Protocol has already been established. I challenged myself to present this in 10 minutes or less. All right? So for 2019, we have already seen the fruits of the season. We have already had Andrea. The DMCA started its preparation as of November last year. Operations. We at the DMCA have a mandate. In the event of something happening, we would activate the EOC. So one of the main things that we ensure is that we have the EOC in a state of readiness in the event that activation becomes necessary. We have already carried out our shelter inspections for this year as of April, and our generators have already been inspected to ensure operability in the event of they have to be deployed. We have been fortunate and thankful for the assistance that we have had from the UK government in terms of the cache of emergency supplies and equipment that we have received. This would only bolster the DMCA's capability at the national level and institutional level to function adequately if we had to in the event of an activation. We continue to daily monitor weather reports. Our food stock monitoring has improved, where in the past that we used to actually have to go to the supermarkets. Now we just make a call at the Ministry of Trade, and that information is at our fingertips. So we can have that information to us right away. So we have our general logs and forms that we would need during the activation of the EOC. Also, we carry out an inventory of the radio room, our radio operators that we would have to use in the event of an activation. Also, we speak of the plans, internal plans, departmental plans. Those have been reviewed, and we continue and ask persons who have not sent in theirs already, please to send them in. This is one way of us having an audit of what we have in place and how we expect or how we anticipate you as the individual to support the national response in the event of. So please, if you have not submitted your plans before, please send them in. We have had some renovations done to the media room Got some new tables, the PA system. So these are all things that we're looking at in terms of enhancing the capability, because if we should be activated, this would be the media room where you would have all your media houses, reporters. This would be where your briefing would be. So we have to ensure that we are at a stage where we have the facilities in place to facilitate that. Satellite phones have been tested. The accounts also have been updated. We have updated our list for government vehicles, and we are ready. The last one that I need to speak about, and we are so happy, is that we jokingly refer to it as Lord Admaid's site up at Silver Hills, because I know he was rather instrumental in pushing to have this done after his visit to Montserrat. And I'm happy to report that work has started, and we're expecting it to, as I said, strengthen the communication resilience for Montserrat. Because as we know, if there's an issue at Silver Hills, until we get that fiber optic cable, we're seriously in a pickle. Communications. We know over the years this has been a sticking point as relates to our response capability. H.E., in early discussions, you mentioned that we needed to do some form of testing as relates to our communication. I can report to you that we have done some preliminaries. We have been able to be in contact with St. Lucia. The siren system, which also ties into our communication capability, would be tested also today. Sat phones, those have been used that we can actually speak to persons. We have updates in terms of local agencies, sat phone information, and so on. So this is where we are. We continue. One of the concerns that we have also is the VHF system. You're well aware of the discussions that have gone on over the past year in terms of that aspect of it. And I just want to plug in that we are still harping away that this is something, a capability that we definitely need to bolster, because in any emergency, communication is going to be key. And we need to have first responders that when they're out in the field, that they're adequately equipped, that they can report in when they need to. So we've done radio checks with some of our local agencies. We know we have the Motorola system, and some of the agencies who have benefited from that is listed here. We know who they are. You can read through. And we constantly go over training. If there are persons who require radio communication training, we are willing and able to do that. And this is a program that is constantly ongoing. Just to say, we have had some training with the tourism division in terms of persons being able, who are expected to operate in Plymouth. So some of the tour operators and support staff have actually been exposed to that type of training. Shelters. As I mentioned before, we have conducted our shelter management, our shelter inspections for the year. The number of shelters, official shelters, remains at 10. But available to us, I think we have 7. The reason being, the condition of some of the shelters have not met the requirement for this year to be utilized as an emergency shelter. One of the things that we have done, and just a point to note, St. Peter's, which has been one of the more reliable shelters over the years, does have some issues, and we have taken the decision, not that the roof is compromised, but when we have rain, it is actually seeping through the walls. So we need to have that rectified, because last year we had a situation where it rained and there was some bit of flooding. So we have taken the decision this year to take that off. When you take away something, you must have something replaced or a solution in place. So we have entered into discussions with the Braids Pentecostal Church in terms of use of the Arts and Education Center. I can tell you that this weekend there will be a meeting of the board to discuss this very request, and by next week we should have. I don't anticipate a negative response, but it has to go through the process. One of the things that we would need to have the dialogue also is that if it is an okay or go ahead, how we can maybe assist in terms of the retrofitting the facility to bolster it and support it as an emergency shelter. So what I can tell you at this point, we have, I think, about just over 200 bed spaces as relates to national capacity. It is not enough, because prior to, we had 420. What I can say, it is not all doom and gloom. The Cavalry Hill shelter, we have had a standing agreement in terms of, if necessary, we can utilize the upstairs of the education center. All right? We have not had to actually use it, but it is there. So if necessary, we have the top of that facility that we can use.
To have a lovely day and a joy-filled weekend. Thank you very much.